the speed of consciousness awakening, I've seen in some cases to be the fastest where the morphic field is the youngest. For instance, like a mycelium might be a very old morphic field, where like a fern is an old morphic field relative to a plant. And so the older the morphic field, the more story the organism has and the more unlearning it has to do. So in the case of something that can really come from, say, almost a 0 point of consciousness into a point where it can recognize not only that it has consciousness, but that it can receive information from a rarefied morphic field and share it with its cousins, is plastic. And I've seen this a few times where it's a kind of a plastic that is relatively young, and that it can absorb information from a rich morphic field, absorb it into its own morphic field, and then share it with other parts of plastic around it almost instantaneously. On the railroads, there's the plastic that they use to cushion the rails from the ties, in some cases. So what I used to do is I would go up and I would work on the railroad tracks as a way of energizing all of the steel in the world, because you've got the cars rolling over the railroad tracks, and they're shipped to almost every country in the world, and I could go and present information to one set of tracks, and it goes everywhere. So part of it was to see the plastic that they come up and they've torn apart their railroad tracks and upgrade them, maybe they change the ties or something, and they just throw the junk on the side of the tracks, which you've seen that. And so I picked up one of these skid things, and I just gave it some information, then put it back down, walked to the next one, already had it, just like that. Experiment that I saw in regard to how well very specific kinds of morphic field information can be spread between a community of organisms was an experiment done with lodgepole pines. Now there's, in our area, there are lodgepole pines up on 80, and 3 individuals of the lodgepole pines were exposed, so to speak, to a type of rarefied plant matter. And this was done simply by putting a little bit of the plant matter on the bark of those trees. Then the trees were registered for their baseline prior and the effect afterwards of what level of information that the 3 lodgepole pines were able to absorb from that rarefied plant matter. Then my assistant traveled to Colorado, which is some 300 miles away, and measured the lodgepole pines there and found that there was no loss of information in the lodgepole pines there. And obviously for it to get from the 3 individuals here to Colorado, that it had to spread through millions of individuals along the way without a loss of information. But the thing about this is that in the beginning you see that the lodgepole pines were not to a space where they could actually, say, be able to absorb information or be able to be that aware of the family members around them. But when they went into a rarefied state with the heightened morphic field information, they went into like a degree of superconsciousness, which is the real value in the morphic field exploration, in that tremendous amounts of information can be stored within simple objects by their own choice. And then as they have a wider range of information within their morphic field, they can then alter their, say, what you call it, constituent value. And therefore, when that is done, they change their node of probability within the matrix of potential. The matrix of potential is a paper I wrote, a white paper I wrote for the wands to describe why they did what they did.